I hope you're enjoying your ViteConf experience so far. Now I will talk about Storybook and Vite and how the two things keeps getting better and better together. My name is Jeppe. I am a software engineer at Chromatic, and I am a core maintainer of Storybook. I spend my full day working on Storybook and making it better for users out there. Vite keeps evolving Storybook, and in this talk I will tell you about how we are pushing performance even further, how we are improving the integrations with the Vite-based frameworks, and I'll also be introducing some new tools that allows you to do some Vite-based testing, which I am sure you're going to love. I should probably first start by introducing what Storybook is for those of you that don't know. Storybook is a front-end tool to build UI components faster and simpler in isolation. It allows you to build up a catalog of all your components and all of their use cases and states and props and how they fit together. Storybook works with the major view layers out there, such as React and Vue and Svelte and Angular and such. And it is the most popular tool for building components out there. We have a vast ecosystem with over 500 add-ons that makes it even easier for you to develop your components. In Storybook, use cases are called stories. You write out your stories in code as a way to express how this component is supposed to be used. In this example, we have a button component that can either be primary or secondary. It can have different sizes and it can have a label. The primary story here is a collection of arcs, or you might know them as props. It's basically the primary prop being set to true and it having a specific label. That combined will give you the primary button. You can keep changing up your arcs either in code, or you could do it dynamically in Storybook to see how it behaves when you pass in different props to your component. This is just a very simple example, and you do so much more than this in Storybook. Storybook lives alongside your application. It imports the same components as your application does, but it doesn't live in your application. So it doesn't have any effect on your production bundle, and your user can't use it at all. It's only for your developers and your team to use to develop your components. But Storybook is more than a workbench. Storybook allows you to both develop, test, and document your stories. So you can write tests directly in Storybook and see how your button behaves when it's been interacted with. And you can document how it is supposed to be used by anyone who is importing it. It's a really powerful combination of everything you need to build out your components. Storybook is used by production in many teams all over the world as a preferred tool for building components. Both big and small are using it to build anything from design systems to full pages in Storybook. Just so we're all on the same page here, my good friend Ian gave a talk about Storybook at last year's ViteConf. That's the talk where we introduced first-class Vite support. We announced that we've now removed Webpack for all the Vite users out there, and it dramatically improved performance. We also announced first-class support of PNPM, which we know is a big force in the Vite ecosystem. And a great thank you to Ian for giving that talk that really sparked the energy around Storybook and Vite. Then in the spring, we released Storybook 7. And since then, the Vite usage has gone up to 40% of all Storybooks. That means that today, 40% of all Storybooks that are being created are actually Vite-based Storybooks. It's a huge accomplishment by the community, and it really shows how fast the Vite community is growing and how mature it already is. So I think this is wild numbers given the relatively small amount of time it's been in place. We can make Storybook and Vite go really fast, and I'll now show you how we are making it go even faster in the upcoming Storybook 8 release. I should probably tell you about the benchmarks that we are talking about here. We call it time to story rendered. it's the time it takes for you to start the development server all the way to we see the story being rendered in the browser. So it's a full thing. And it's not just a subset of how fast is the dev server to start up, because that doesn't really matter to users. What matters is how fast can I see my stories. This is not how fast you can change between stories, because that's obviously faster. This is from the first story being rendered. In the Storybook 8 pre-release right now, we're seeing an 8% performance increase over Storybook 7 in a minimal React example that uses React and Vite, but only has 6 stories. 8% is okay, but it's not wow. We're seeing way better results if we take this further to a more mid-sized application like the Meal Drop application, which is more regular and has way more stories, including pages. In Meal Drop, we're seeing a 55% improvement of time to story rendered just by upgrading to Storybook 8. We think this is pretty fantastic, that users don't have to do anything to get that. But this is not just for React applications. We're seeing the same improvements happening in Vue and Svelte with 42% improvement of performance. And I think those are really great numbers, and it really makes the experience better when using Storybook with these frameworks. I can't wait to get Storybook 8 into your hands and let you try it out. But we have more. We have something we called Storybook Lite. Storybook Lite is a set of changes we're making that allows you to choose the features of Storybook that you need without getting the full package. I previously talked about how Storybook allows you to develop, test, and document your components. But we realized that not all users need all of those components. So with Storybook Lite, you're allowed to take out some of the features you don't need. And we're starting with allowing you to replace the MDX docs with some lighter and more leaner Markdown docs instead. It's a more limited use case, but if you only need that limited use case, you can use that instead and get a leaner and more performant experience. If we take Storybook Lite into our previous benchmarks, we're seeing an even greater performance improvement than before. We're seeing up to 60% performance increase just by going from Storybook 7 to Storybook 8 without docs. So that's really a great improvement. Enough about performance. Let's talk about the Vite ecosystem. We have been working hard on improving our integrations with the Vite-based frameworks out there. At the beginning of the year, we started with building out the SvelteKit integration, and we now have first-class support for SvelteKit in Storybook. We built the integration in close collaboration with Svelte maintainers, especially Ben McCann, who's been a really great help on the Svelte side on this. The Storybook integration supports pages and data loading and layouts and most of the things that you will use in SvelteKit. I even went as far as to do a live stream on the Svelte Society YouTube demonstrating how you can have your pages and your layouts in Storybook if you need to. I suggest that you check out the learn more links below to see that recording. Very soon, we're getting even deeper integrations with some of the Kit-specific APIs, and you should stay put if you're using SvelteKit because it's going to be even better. But we haven't been the only ones hard at work. The community has also been super helpful here. A great guy in the community built the Solid.js integration. He even contributed to the core Storybook experience to make it even better for granular reactivity that Solid needs to support reactive props. He also rewrote all the snippets in the documentation to be Solid.js snippets, so we now have full documentation for Solid, which is just fantastic. I suggest that you check out the Solid.js repository in the Learn More and in the StackBlitz links below. We also saw a great community member, Literal Pie, doing a quick integration, all based on Vite. not only does it allow you to use your quick components in Storybook, but it also has helpers to integrate with Quick City if you need those specific APIs in your Storybook. You should really check out the examples and the documentation below. Let's get on to it. We're announcing testing stories with Vitest in Storybook 8. This has been a very highly requested feature by the Vite community that don't want to use Jest for testing, but rather Vitest. And we're happy to announce that we are starting to support that in the upcoming Storybook release. To do this, we have to do it in 2 steps. And the first step is to look at our expect package that we call Storybook Jest. We're replacing that with Storybook Tests. Storybook Tests is the package that you will import from when you need to import any matches in your Storybook tests. It is compatible with Vitest and with Jest, and it even uses some of the Vitest packages under the hood, so we know that it is performant and it's optimized because the Vitest team has just been doing fantastic work since forever. That was step 1. Step 2 is something that we call portable stories. Portable stories allows you to reuse your components set up in the stories and reuse those in your unit test that you're doing with Vitest. So you can import the stories, you can render the stories, and then you can do any assertions that you need in Vitest. This means that you don't need to redefine your components twice, first in your stories and then redefine how you will render them in your unit test, because you can just import your stories directly and assert on those. Portable stories today already works for React and Vue 3, and in the future we're expanding that support to most of the other major frameworks out there. We're also bringing Vitest documentation to our official docs, so it's easier for you to get started with Vitest. We think this is pretty awesome, and you should just really try it out. Here's an example of how this works. So up top we have our stories file, and at the bottom we have our Vitest tests running. The story is exporting a primary story that has a combination of arcs and the template. We can import that in our Vitests directly by importing all the stories, and then we import what we call compose stories from the Storybook library. We then run the stories through the compose stories function to create the components that Vitest needs to render. And then we can simply render the story in Vitest, and as you are used to with Vitest, you can do the assertions and the interactions directly with the testing library that you want to use. You should really just try this out when it gets there, because it's a pretty great workflow. There's one more thing though, and something we're calling the Visual Tests add-on. This is a sneak peek into something that's coming up. It allows you to test your stories in Storybook, but with real browsers. And the tests are pixel perfect, so you get to see if anything has changed pixel by pixel, and you can either accept or reject these changes, because they might not have been on purpose that you changed the color from red to blue. The test runs in the cloud, and we support Chrome, Edge, Safari, and Firefox. So the major browsers that you need to support. You can use all of the functionality in Storybook that you're already using, like specifying different viewports or CSS media queries or backgrounds or whatever you need. You can have those in your test as well. It's in the cloud, so it means it's parallelized, and it doesn't require much work from your computer, because we're actually doing the screenshot and the diffing on our end and sending the result back to you. If you go into a bit more detail, what we're seeing here is a story, as usual, being rendered, and we have run the tests for it, and the tests have come back saying the story has changed. These green pixels are what was not there before. What did you change? You can see how the tests are different from browser to browser, or even from viewport to viewport. And this is a really great way to ensure that not only are you writing great components, but you're not breaking them over time as well. We have the very popular testing trophy, which describes how you can have static tests, unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests. One thing missing from that trophy is how you figure out if the UI is rendered correctly, because your V-test won't tell you about pixels. Your playwright definitely won't. But if you run the actual components in a browser, do a pixel diff, get it back, you will see how the UI has changed. And those are important aspects as well of your components. Check out the blog post about Visual Tests add-on that goes into way more detail than I just did. That's also where you can sign up for early access today. To recap, Storybook 8, pretty fast with Vite. We're improving our integrations with the Vite-based frameworks, and we're introducing a way for you to test your stories directly in VTest. We're also introducing the Visual Tests add-on that allows you to see a pixel-perfect diff of all your components' changes in all of the major browsers. If you liked what I showed today, you can get started with Storybook by running npx storybook init, and you can visit the URLs on top. Especially, I suggest that you go to our Discord and join our community because we really love just talking with all our users. Bye.